Turns out in a very literal medical sense my brain doesn't work. Hello guys, strap yourself in, this is going to be a long one. I think this is just going to be the first part because I think there's going to be more coming. So I'll tell you the story up to now, and then in a couple of weeks, couple of months, I'll probably be able to update you with a bit more of the information, but I'm just going to tell you what I know right now. Okay, so I guess the best way to tell the story is like temporally, so let's go chronologically, that's the word. Let's start right at the very beginning. So when I was about 14, I started getting these strange absences. I think they happened before then, that is my first memory of them, but I remember them being familiar then, so I think it was actually going on for longer than that, but that was the first time I remember noticing. Now, I kind of half mentioned these to other people, like I knew that they were happening and they felt weird, and I sort of told people that it was a thing, but it was never like a major issue. I never really like followed it up, never really thought much about it, thought that it was just a weird brain quirk. The only other person I think who noticed them was my mum. She noticed them, and at the time I don't remember them happening very often, but the only ones I can remember are ones that were really noticeable. And essentially what they were was I would just, for like a second, it was like a light switch going on and off in my brain, and I was like completely unconscious for that second. Like I don't fall, I didn't like, nothing like that, but my eyes would like flutter, and I have no memory of what we were talking about, I have no memory of what was said to me in that time, and they are very, very, very quick. But they take me a while to sort of work out what was going on, what was happening, what I was saying, and then I'm like back on it again. And this whole thing happens so quickly, but it's such a strange sensation that it felt different from like losing your train of thought, things like that. So it was enough for me to notice it, and it was weird, but wasn't happening very often that I remember, or that I was paying attention to. So I just didn't follow it up. There's no, you know, I sort of notice that these things are happening a bit, but they seem to sort of fade off, and I don't actually know if they have or I just stopped thinking about it, because they're so small that most of the time I don't even like remember that it happened, or like pay attention to it or whatever. So I think the chances are it probably was still happening, I just wasn't paying any attention to it. And then around the summer last year, I noticed them coming up again. I don't know if they got worse, I just all of a sudden got a job where I had to present a lot. Part of my job is that I have to present these like half an hour long talks in front of groups of families, basically. And when they happened in them, it was very obvious, because it was like a group of 20 odd people staring at me, and I was trying to tell a story, so it was very much got interrupted. I think maybe that they were happening more, but it just suddenly it became more obvious. Maybe they were getting worse at the same time, I'm not entirely sure, I don't think I'll ever know. But it became a point where I was like, right, this is definitely happening again. I don't know what it is, I don't know why, I'm not concerned, but maybe I should question this. And I kind of had looked them up in the past, and the thing that comes up when you look up this kind of thing that matches my description is absence seizures. And it was exactly what was described, this like almost like light switch in your brain, like mentally unconscious, but you're not like dropping, you're not like, you don't, at least in most cases, you don't lose like ability to use your muscles or anything like that, you're just like in your head unconscious, then you're back, which is exactly what I felt. So I was like, okay, well that's probably what this is, but again, never thought much of it. Kind of mentioned it to some people and was like, I'm probably having these, but I haven't looked into it, it's probably not an issue. From what I could tell on the internet as well, they seem to be kind of relatively common, like not really uncommon. Wasn't that concerned about it. I managed to talk to a couple of people, and quite a few people went, you should probably go to a doctor. And I was like, maybe alright. But at the time I had like a million different referrals for so many different things, I couldn't be bothered with it. But then there came a sort of time where I was having less referrals for other things, and I was like, right, okay, this is probably a thing that's going to take me a whole bunch of appointments, so let's do it now while I haven't got a bunch of other stuff on, because if I'm gonna get this scene to you, you know, let's just do it. So I called up a doctor. I left a voicemail basically saying this is what's going on. I don't know if it warrants further investigation. It's not really affecting my life. It's not really causing me many issues, I don't think. But this is a thing. Should I get checked out? And then I'd like to point out that at that point I thought they were absence seizures. That is what the description online to me sounded like, and I joined some Facebook groups of people who also had it, sort of described my symptoms, read about their symptoms, and I was like, this almost perfectly describes what I'm having. Wasn't particularly concerned about it, to be honest. I'm not still particularly concerned about it, but we'll get to that. I didn't use those words though, because I have learned that when you use words like that, when you sort of self-diagnose, when you're talking to a doctor, they will just immediately dismiss you as some crazy person. So I didn't say the words absence seizures when I left the voicemail. I just described my symptoms. I get a call back from the receptionist going, the doctor wants to see you about your absence seizures. They used the words, not me. This really annoyed me. This really annoyed me because if I hadn't already looked that up, if I hadn't already pretty much known that that's what it was, I've just been told by a receptionist on a voicemail that I was having seizures. Like, can you imagine if you didn't already know what that was and that was how you found out? Not the best. She absolutely shouldn't have said that. The doctor had obviously listened to my voice message and gone, that's what it is. I need her to make a doctor's appointment, which is fine, but the receptionist shouldn't have said that to me, not without a doctor being present. The doctor should have been the first person to say that, not the receptionist, so that wasn't fantastic. I was a little bit annoyed about that, but wasn't a surprise. I thought that's what they were, they thought that's what they were. Excellent. Have a doctor's appointment, they go, pretty sure this is what it is, and I'm like, great, cool, what now? Is it an issue? And he was like, we're going to send you off to neurology to get checked out. Cool, fine with me. At this point they also told me that I'm not going to be allowed to drive. I was kind of expecting this as well, and it was definitely a thing that I was thinking about when I was like, should I go to the doctor, because if I do get this diagnosed I will not be allowed to drive. But in hindsight I decided it was better off to know if this was a serious thing or not than to have a driver's license. Also, if I can't drive, I probably can't drive for a reason, so maybe it's a good thing. Anyway, they told me then that I probably wouldn't be allowed to drive, and that's, you know, going to be an ongoing conversation, but for now it is not an option. And I don't anyway, so it's fine. I just can't learn. And he, yeah, basically referred me to neurology. So I go to my neurology appointment a couple of weeks later, and it was relatively straightforward. I showed him some videos of my absence seizures, whatever they were, which I will show you now. Now these are all videos taken from my channel while I'm filming, so if I notice that I have one while I'm editing, I will film that and then I cut it out. These are all cut out. But I don't think any of these are particularly strong ones, so let's show you a few. I'll put the video up here, and I'll talk you through sort of what's happening. So in this one, it's really subtle. I'll play that on loop here, so the bit where it actually happens. But essentially what you can see is my eyes drift away as if I'm not focused on the conversation, which is exactly what's happening, and then they sort of flutter a bit. But it's not just me looking around looking for my words, it is like brain off. And they're strange because to the outsider they don't look any different from me just like losing my train of thought, but in my brain feels much different brain thoughts. So in this one, again, I'll play it on loop here. You can basically see that I lose my train of thought, try and continue, realise that it's happened and I didn't know what I said, just go, right, let's stop and start this again. Because sometimes I will keep saying words because my brain's already got the words in its head, and I'll just keep going even though like brain unconscious, not there, no signal, and then I won't know what I've said. So I will have to stop and go, I know I just said words, I have no idea what those words were. Occasionally I will say words that have nothing to do with the sentence, just still words happening, not right words, just words. Okay, I'll show you one more. I have quite a few of these. I saved them because they told me that it would be useful to save them. I'm not going to bother anymore, but here is one more. So again, I'll put this here. The eyelid fluttering is the bit where it happens. I keep going and then I'm completely back, and then realise that I don't know what I've said, that I have said something but I don't know what it is, so we start again. That is a theme for most of these. I think most people don't notice these because they are incredibly subtle, and in fact I think I do this a lot more than I am aware of, but we'll get to that in a second. So, talk to neurology. They say basically the same thing. Sounds like you have an absence seizure, sounds like it might be some form of epilepsy because that is what causes absence seizures. They sent me off for an MRI scan and a blood test, an ECG and an EEG. So I do the ECG on the day and the blood test on the day, none of which I have had the results for, but this was months ago, so I assumed they were fine, or they would have told me. And then he books me in for the MRI and the EEG. I go to the MRI, absolutely fine, done them before, have a whole video on what to expect of MRIs. This one was so much better. They did it in like this fancy new MRI machine. It was like half as loud, and it wasn't freezing cold, and it didn't take very long, and like, haven't had the results from that yet, but yesterday I did the EEG. Now, let me see if I can find the piece of paper I was given. My SD card filled up, so I don't know where it finished, but essentially what I was saying was that I'd been told by the letter that I got for this EEG, I was told by the medical professionals, I was told by people who have experienced this to not expect to get an answer on the day of the EEG. And the one that they were doing, that they were going to make me hyperventilate, open and close my eyes and flash lights in my eyes, all with the aim of inducing one of these absence seizures. And in doing so they'd be able to see the readouts on the EEG and confirm if it was caused by issues in brainwave activity, and basically actually diagnose them as absence seizures, and therefore epilepsy. Now, I went into this fully believing this was not going to be the only appointment that I had, knowing that this was going to be a long process. I'm used to things taking forever to diagnose. I did not expect this to work, but it worked. So I purposely didn't sleep very well the night before because tiredness is one of my triggers, and I was also in an unfamiliar environment, which is another one of my triggers, so it may be that it was just the perfect storm of things to induce it. However, they told me then and there that I definitely have epilepsy because of how much activity they saw on this EEG. So it happened while they were doing the stimulus, when they weren't doing the stimulus, all the way through. They said that I was having ones that they could see on the screen and they could see that I was responding to it, but I didn't notice that I was having them because I said, if I was like, that's just happened, I knew that it was going to be a particularly bad day for them because I could feel it, like I can feel it. So I think there was a good chance that like I was going to have them anyway, and there was one where I was like, I just noticed that just happened, so you can, you know, have a look at the readouts and see if they match up, basically. But the consultant doing it specifically said to me, have you just had them? And I was like, I don't know. And she was like, I just think I watched you have one. And I was like, I don't know. And not just that, but there was many points where I could see her watching the machine, watching the readout, and I could see her react to something on the readout, whereas I didn't feel anything. So I already knew that there was something going on. So they made me do the hyperventilation, which I couldn't do all the way to the end because I was about to pass out. So I stopped that. And I did the open and close eye thing. I didn't feel anything in those, but then when they did the flashing light one, that was truly miserable. So I told her before she started, I was like, I'm not gonna like this. I don't like flashing lights, I don't like bright lights. They just give me a headache, I just really don't like them. And she was like, it's probably not gonna be much fun. We're gonna do it. If you want to stop, you can stop. But I was like, no, you know, I need to do this, let's do it. If I need to stop, I'll let you know. If I need to pause, I'll let you know, but let's just get on with it. So she runs through them all and immediately goes, I need to get a doctor. I was like, okay. So she goes and gets the doctor and brings the doctor back in, and essentially the doctor looks at all of the readouts and says kind of what I was expecting to say, because it's kind of what she'd been implying, was that there was readouts all the way through, that there was like all the time there was this activity going on all the way through the tests. And the issue was there was also activity during the photosensitivity test, as in the flashing lights test, and they didn't know if my seizures were photosensitive because they were happening constantly. So there was just this like all the time going on throughout this. And I was only there for like 20 minutes to half an hour ish, hooked up onto this machine. So they made me do the test again, obviously, and they ramped it all the way up and did the absolute worst one, and I definitely felt something happening. Like, I definitely got the absence, but also, like, a thing that I've never experienced before is, like, all of my muscles going really, really stiff, and like, my hand twitching. And I said afterwards, that just happened. I've never had experienced that before. However, I also hate this. So I don't know if it was happening because of activity or if it was happening because of just my muscles tensing, because I really, really didn't like it. But it felt different to that. I don't really know how to describe it. Anyway, I told them all this and they went, like, we can't give you an answer to that now. We can't tell you what type of seizures they are. We can't tell you if you're photosensitive, but you absolutely have this. We don't need to do further testing. You don't need to come back. It's been evident all the way through this test, which made my life easier. Don't have to come in and do another test. But that was the most, I don't know, the biggest revelation in that appointment for me, because I knew that this was happening. Like, the epilepsy diagnosis, like, on the spot was a surprise, not the fact that it was the diagnosis, the fact that this is happening, like, all the time. Now, I don't know if this is happening all the time, if that makes sense. I don't know if, like, when I feel like it's gonna happen, is that because there is this, like, big, almost like constant spiking in my brain? Like, right now I don't feel like it's gonna happen. So does that mean that there's nothing going on in my brain right now? And that when I feel like it's gonna happen, it's because there's a lot going on, and it's just like small amounts of change, but all the time? I don't really understand it. I'm gonna be completely honest, I'm probably talking complete rubbish right now. What I do know is that in that moment, when you combined my triggers of tiredness and new environment, that there was this, like, pretty constant and pretty obvious misfiring and activity going on in my brainwaves. And I've been thinking about that since then, starting to think of, like, how many of these weird things that I think my brain does or my body does is actually because that is happening and I had no idea. Because it's clearly happening a lot more than I knew it was happening. So I've been thinking about that. But that's I guess that's the end point here, is that yesterday they were like, you definitely have this, I'm diagnosing you here on the spot. The next steps are absolutely cannot drive. I've actually got a bus pass now, free bus pass, because you get one if you can't drive. Excellent, fun times. I'm going to be seeing an epilepsy nurse, I think they said. I'm going to be referred to my GP, and then I also have a follow-up with neurology to talk about everything that happened. I have a couple questions about the ways that this might link to some of my other issues, but I'm not going to get into that until I know a little bit more. So yeah, that's where we're at. This is definitely not going to be the only video on this. Once I know more, once I've probably, I mean, I don't even know if they're going to put me on medication. They didn't tell me that. They said that they probably will, but they don't know what type or anything like that. They need to look at the EEG a bit more. So I don't know what happens from here. If anybody else has, you know, had this happen, let me know down in the comments what happened to you next. And I don't know what's going to happen next, so keep an eye out. The moral of the story is though, well, no, not the moral. I guess the moral of the story is go to your doctor if you think something's wrong, because maybe you have epilepsy. The point of this is that I'm okay. Like, I'm fine. I'm not particularly overwhelmed by the diagnosis or anything. It's just news. Not good news or bad news, it's just news. It's just strange and interesting information about my brain. Nothing has changed from like a week ago when I didn't have the diagnosis. Like, it's not as if it suddenly gets more serious because I've had it. I don't know what happens now, but essentially I'm okay. Anyway, that was my life update. This is pretty long. I'm literally going to go edit this now and upload it because I'm quite behind on videos. But if you have any requests or questions, leave them down in the comments. New videos every Wednesday. Like, subscribe, and all jazz, and I'll see you next week.